So today, Jon Jones told Kamil Gadzhiev on FaceTime that he's done fighting. The guy who hosts the Russian Ultimate Fighter-like show where Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling were the team leaders on season 1, and the next season is supposed to be Jon Jones and Nate Diaz, but Gadzhiev said, "You're still active, you have 10 years left of fighting," and Jon Jones replied with, "Nah, I'm done. This doesn't give me any faith at all, honestly, in Jon Jones and him actually manning up and fighting Tom Aspinall, who defended his interim title almost a year ago now. This whole situation of Jon not fighting Tom makes me think of the Khabib situation where the UFC doesn't want them to retire and doesn't want to strip him, and they're trying everything they can do to get Jon to fight except for pay him the 30 or 40 or 50 million that he's probably asking for. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Aspinall versus Cyril Gane or some bullshit next. Somebody tweeted Jon saying, "Enjoy your last days as champ before being stripped, I see, Jon." And Jon replied and said, "Stripped? Lol, do I come across as the type of person who cares about things like that?" Which isn't a good reply because we know that Jon absolutely cares about stuff like that and the legacy he leaves behind of hitting pregnant women, doing cocaine, and using PEDs. He absolutely cares if they strip him, but the UFC doesn't want to do that because they're probably using Jon Jones versus Aspinall as a negotiating leverage because we know their broadcasting deal with ESPN ends this year, and having that fight in their back pocket gives them some power and probably gives them some more cash to pay Jon the huge purse that he's asking for. Somebody else replied to Jon and said, "Yes, otherwise you'd have vacated the belt a long time ago because you don't plan to fight Tom." And he said, "Y'all are barking up the wrong tree. I told the UFC my plans a long time ago. I have no clue why they haven't shared them with you guys yet." Which makes me believe that Jon has told the UFC he will only fight Aspinall for 40 or even 50 million, and the UFC obviously doesn't want to pay him that. But it puts the UFC in a weird position because Jon told the fans to ask the UFC what he told them and what his plans are, which I really believe are that he'll retire or he'll fight Aspinall for 50 million or something crazy like that, and he's not going to budge. Jon was also asked if he was fighting again or not. You are the current champion of the division, and he said that's not a bad idea, which makes me believe even more that Jon is ducking Aspinall by asking for an unreasonable amount of money to make the fight happen, which hopefully happens in November at MSG. But by asking for a shit ton of cash the UFC isn't going to give you, you're kind of ducking Aspinall. I hope they give him the cash because I want to see Aspinall versus Jones, but it just doesn't seem likely at all right now. Jones also posted, "I'm over here sipping on a coconut in Thailand, and you're talking about when you're going to fight," which is honestly a good negotiation strategy by Jon, getting the fans super pissed off, seeing him do wild stuff on vacation in Thailand and around the world, all while ducking Aspinall, making fans spam the UFC and seem like it's the UFC that's holding the fight back when it's definitely Jon. This has me a bit heated and a lot of fans upset because there's nothing more than we want to see Aspinall and Jon in the octagon ASAP, and he's baiting fans by posting all this stuff that doesn't have anything to do with his next fight or if he's going to retire or what his next move is, saying that it's all up to the UFC and he already told them his plans. I don't think Jon will end up fighting Tom. I can see him just having Aspinall waiting for years like he already has and then up and leaving. He's always been the type of guy to get under people's skin, and he's definitely doing that to Aspinall. I'm 2 subscribers away from my goal of 10 subs. Thank you guys for that. See you later.